This morning. The topic this morning is the Olympic tradition at Tennessee State University, and we're fortunate to have with us the former coach of the women's track team at Tennessee State University, Coach Ed Temple. And Coach Temple, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney.
Coach, you know, we've had you on the show before, and you gave us an excellent interview about a large number of things that have happened in the athletic program at Tennessee State University, and especially the women's track program. But what we'd like to do this morning is to talk about Tennessee State University and the Olympic tradition, recognizing that the Olympics will be held in Atlanta this year, and recognizing that you've played a very, very significant role in the history of the Olympics in recent years. And let's have you do that, but let's have you start out by giving us some background information about your education and some of the things that were important in your life and eventually leading you to Tennessee State University.
Well, I guess that takes me back quite a few years. I came to Tennessee State University in 1946 as a freshman, graduated in 1950. In health and physical education and sociology, and then I went on and got my master's in sociology. And then I started coaching the women's track team at Tennessee State University in 1950. I did further study at Penn State for about 2 summers, but I started in 1950, and we won our first national championship in 1955. And then from that time on, I guess we just started to roll. And right now, of course, I retired after 44 years there at Tennessee State. We put 40 young ladies on the Olympic team. 35 of them were USA citizens that represented the United States, and 5 of them, they represented Jamaica, Panama, Trinidad, and Bermuda. Those were some of the countries that the 5 others made up. Of them 40 individuals, 39 graduated with their degrees, and the one that didn't graduate went on and graduated from Chicago State, but she didn't graduate from Tennessee State. So really all of them graduated, but 39 of the 40 graduated from Tennessee State. And then of them 39, we had 31 with their master's degree, and we got 8 with their either MD or PhD.
You know, Coach, today, and I know quite recently, there was a seminar at Tennessee State University in your honor, and they dealt with women in sports.
Right.
And I think one of the issues that generally come up when we talk about women in sports is the idea of gender equity. Let's look at it from your perspective. That is, what did it mean to be a woman in athletics back in the period when you first started with the women's track team at Tennessee State University? Let's look at it from gender equity point.
Well, my first year, my budget was $300, and we had 1 track meet, and we went to the Tuskegee Relays. That was in Tuskegee, Alabama. And I guess for the first 10 to 15 years, we had no more than 3 track meets. And we would go to places like Tuskegee, in which we couldn't go to the restroom. We had to pull over to the side of the road, and the girls had to hit the field to go to the restroom. We couldn't go to the restaurants when we went to Alabama and various places. Even when we went to the Penn Relays, we got in a station wagon, and we drove all the way to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The only time we stopped was to get gas and to get something to eat. We didn't have the money to stop in a hotel and everything. We didn't get an athletic scholarship as we know it but today until 1968. That meant Wilma Rudolph, Wyma Tice, Edith McGuire, and all of our other gold medal winners had what we call a work aid. Now, work aid, you know what that is, that you work 2 hours a day doing some kind of clerical work or some kind of work that you had to put in 2 hours of work. So in other words, I mean, what the playing field was very uneven when we were coming along, very uneven. It taken us a long while. Eventually, when I finished my last year in 1994, we had a budget of over $100,000 on paper. Of course, now that was on paper. By the time you got it and stripped it down, it was about $80,000. It started out July 1st with, we'll say, $105,000, but by the time you got it in January, by the time you started your first indoor track meet, it was about down to $80,000.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that Tennessee State University has played a crucial role. You've already indicated that you've turned out sent at least 40 people to the Olympics. But let's talk about some of those Olympic events and some of the things that were significant in terms of from your first Olympics to up until quite recently. What are some of the things that stand out in your mind in reference to what you were able to accomplish and how the world reacted to what you were doing?
Well, I guess our first was 1956. We put 6 young ladies on the 1956 Olympic team going to Australia. Of those 6, Wilma Rudolph was one of the high school individuals that was in our summer program, in which we had a summer clinic program, I guess since the year 1951, in which we had high school girls come in and they stayed on the campus, and we went to the national championship, in which we had a senior division and a junior division. But anyway, Wilma made the 56 Olympic team when she was 15 years old. And we had 5 other young ladies, 6 counting her. And it was a great thrill to have them go to Australia. Here's a place halfway around the world. And on the 4x100 relay team of United States, we had all 4 girls. All 4 girls were Tiger Bells from Tennessee State. And they won a 3rd place. They won a 3rd place, which is not bad when you think at that time it was about 150 countries, and they were the 3rd best in the 4x100 yard relay. And we had 2 high school girls on that relay team. So that kind of started us off. And then, as you know, in 1960, of course, prior to that time, we had United States versus Russia. I was the first coach from the United States to go to Russia in 1958 when we ran against the Russians for the first time over there in Moscow. Now, we were not supposed to do anything because women's track in the United States was very, very low. In fact, I mean, when they scored over there, they usually score in countries, United States versus Russia or United States versus Germany. But United States at that time didn't want to score it that way. They wanted to score it the United States men against the Russian men, United States women against the Russian women, because they knew we didn't have nothing. Tennessee State was, I guess, we only had about 2 track meets a year, and now you are taking a school and putting it against a country, and a school that has very, very limited resources at that. So we had 8 girls on that United States team, and we wasn't expected to do anything. But anyway, I was a coach of the team, and we went over there in 1958 to Moscow. In fact, we had a European tour. We went to Moscow first, then we went to Poland, Hungary, Greece, and England. But anyway, just to make a long story short, we went over there. We didn't know what we was going up against. We knew the Russians were great, and we knew all those other countries were great, because as far as United States, women's track was very little, other than Tuskegee, Tennessee State, Alabama State, and Philander Smith. That was just about it as far as United States was concerned, as far as women's track was concerned. So anyway, we went over there, and we had 8 girls on the team, and we took the 100 meters, first place. We had a young lady named Barbara Jones took first place. We won the 200, Lucinda Williams won the 200. Then we came back and put a relay team together, all of Tiger Bells, all 4 of them were from Tennessee State, and we whipped the Russians over there in that. So we went over there and made a name for ourselves in 1958 to let them know that, look, we can compete. Then we went on to Poland and Hungary, and at that time it was heavy communist countries. They had just finished with the wars over there and everything, and it was quite disturbing to see some of the sights. But we went over there and performed for the United States, and we done very well. So that really kind of opened up the door. Then the Russians came over here in 1959 with the run in Philadelphia, and I coached that team also. And we did very well. Then there was a young lady named Wilma Rudolph ran in that meet. And we had 2 from the United States and 2 from Russia, and she took 4th place, which was last in the 100 meters. But we won the 100 meters with, again, Barbara Jones, and we had Lucinda running the 200. And then in 1959, we had the Pan American Games come up in Chicago. Well, now with the Pan American Games, that represents 37 countries, all of the Northern Hemisphere, from Canada, clear
Coach,
on
let me
down.
interrupt you for this commercial break, and we'll be back, and we'll pick that up later on.
Okay.
Thank you, and welcome back. The topic is the Olympic tradition at Tennessee State University, and we're talking to the former coach of the women's track team at Tennessee State University, Coach Ed Temple. And Coach Temple, before we left for our, our commercial break, we were talking about the activities of the Tennessee State University Olympic team in the 1950s, especially in 1959. And let's pick up at that lead into that great event of the Olympics of the 1960s.
All right, well, you know, we were talking about the Pan American Games, and as I was saying, it was held in Chicago. And at that time, we had a young lady named Lucinda Williams who won the 100 meters and came back, won the 200 meters, and ran anchor leg on the 4x100 relay team for the United States, which we won first place. Also, there was a young lady named Wilma Rudolph on that team, and she got third in the 100, third in the 200, and she ran on that 4x100 relay team that won first place for the United States. Then we come to 1960, and of course we know 1960 was the year of Wilma Rudolph. I mean, it was her year in Rome, and I coached the United States Olympic team over there in Rome, and we had 8 girls on that team. Had 8 girls on that 1960 Olympic team. And Wilma, as you know, won the 100 meters, came back and won the 200 meters. But I say her greatest thrill, I feel, was running anchor leg for the United States on the 4x100 relay team, which the other 3 young ladies were also Tiger Bells that ran for the United States. And they hadn't won any medals at all at that particular time. And she wanted them to be up on the stand. She had the thrill of standing on the stand and hearing the Star Spangled Banner played for her and for the United States, and again for the 200, where she stood on the stand and had the Star Spangled Banner played for her, and she wanted her teammates to stand up there with her too, which was
she because of third place.
Right, right. So, when the 4x100 relay came around, it was the last event before the women were to run. And they were determined. They were determined that they were going to stand on that stand someplace. Now, they only had the top 3 countries on the stand. So it wasn't too bad for 150 countries. At that time, our 4x100 relay team, consisting of all Tiger Bells, won first place, set a new world record, set a new Olympic record, and that got Wilma Rudolph off to her start.
Very good. Quite recently at Tennessee State University, they dedicated a residence hall in honor of Wilma Rudolph. And I think you made some points in terms of how she ought to be recognized by the municipalities of Middle Tennessee, at least, in terms of honoring her, and et cetera. Let's talk about
Wilma Rudolph was the queen of track and field. Now, the United States didn't name her the queen. The Russians, the French, the German, everybody. After the 1960 Olympics, Wilma Rudolph was just the word all over Europe, Asia, Africa, and everything else. Wilma had a unique thing about her. She had the poise, she had the grace, she had the personality, she had the looks, and she had the talent. I guess that's hard to find all wrapped up in one person. And she knew how to handle it. She went to visit President Kennedy up in Washington. I was with her and her mother, and she was just at ease with President Kennedy as she was with you or me or anybody else. It was just something about her that people just was awed about her because she was so just genuine. She was just down-to-earth type of person.
Now, she started out really not as an athlete, did she? I mean, she had some physical disabilities for a long time.
Well, Wilma didn't walk, without a brace until she was 11 years old. 11 years old, she had polio, and she came to Mahara. Her mother brought her here on the bus 2 or 3 times a week and got treatment and everything. She didn't take off her braces until she was 11. I didn't see her until she was playing basketball at Burt High in Clarksville. She was a tremendous basketball player, but at that time they didn't have anything but for African American girls in basketball. They really didn't have nothing in track other than Tennessee State. And we just happened to see her, and we had that summer program that I was telling you about, and she came into the program. She was a tall, thin young lady. What she had to get stronger and get experience and everything, but she turned out to be excellent. And there's only 2 individuals ever won the Sullivan Award in the state of Tennessee up until now. Now, what the Sullivan Award is the greatest amateur athlete in all sports, football, basketball, men, women, everything. There was only 2 athletes ever won it. Wilma Rudolph won it in 1961, and Tracy Cochins won it in 1976. So those are the only 2. With Tracy Cochins, what she won it in swimming, and Wilma Rudolph, she won it in track and field.
Now, what can you tell our young people this morning, Coach, from your experiences about overcoming obstacles and dedication and whatnot? I mean, what are some of the things that you could say as a track
Well,
coach
I
about
guess
discipline?
out of all my gold medal winners, and I can go down, all of them had tremendous handicaps, come from very poor families. Women come from a family of 22. I mean, poor in economics, what we say, but heavy in love and heavy in togetherness. She was number 20 of the 22. But young ladies like Wyoming Tyus, another gold medal winner in the '64 Olympics, and then came back and won it in '68. The first person, man or woman, ever to repeat in the sprints. Jesse Owens didn't repeat in the sprints. All the other ones didn't. Wyoming Tyus did. But all of them come from circumstances that if it wouldn't have been for track opening up the door for them, they would have been, no doubt, they're still in their small town. Wilma in Clarksville, Tyus in Griffin, Georgia, Lucinda in Savannah, Georgia. All of them come from small places, but they had determination. And I think the strong figure was the mother. All of them had strong mother figures. Father was either dead or sick or something of that nature. And after about 10 or 15 years of recruiting, when I would recruit, the first thing I'd do is check on the father to see if he was dead or if he was sick or something. Because I had so many of my top athletes, father was either dead or sick, or father was very sickly. He had worked so hard that he was just wore out. He was just wore out.
And so there's no truth to the perception that many people might have that single-headed families, mothers, and et cetera, are not as effective as others.
I had strong mother figures, awful strong mother figures. And when I went to go to recruit them, I talked to the mother, and the mother would always tell me, if you have any trouble, just pick up the phone. And I didn't have to pick up the phone very often, because once I picked up the phone and mother called or my mother wrote, I never had no more trouble.
And so all of these young ladies depended upon their mothers.
Mother was a strong figure. Very strong figure.
Very good. And of course, we've got about 35 seconds before this commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to let you talk about some of the more recent events dealing with the Olympics and about the many trips that you made back and forth between Nashville and Atlanta since the Olympics went to Atlanta, and to find out some of the things that are going on now. We're going to first take a minute commercial, and then we'll be right back and talk about some of those things. Let us take this commercial break, and we'll be back with you in just a minute. The topic is Tennessee State University and the Olympic tradition, and we're talking to the former head coach of the women's track team at Tennessee State University, Coach Ed Temple. And Coach, before we had our second break, we were talking about the Olympics and the impact that Tennessee State University has had on the Olympics. But let's talk about what's going on in Atlanta now, and to have you give us some information relative to the Olympics coming to Atlanta. And I understand at one time Nashville was also in competition for being in the spot that Atlanta is in now. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Well, when they was talking about the 1996 Olympics, Mayor Richard Fulton had a brainstorm that he thought Nashville could be a contender to have it here in the United States. Of course, now he formed a committee, and they did a lot of work. I was a part of that committee. And of course, everybody thought it was a joke, but now when all the bids and everything went in, Nashville was in third place. Now, Atlanta was in first, but Nashville was in third place. We didn't have a stadium, you know, just like we're doing in football. We didn't have no stadium. We'd have had to build a stadium and everything, but we were in third place on our proposals. Now, we had a whole lot of proposals on paper, but we didn't have too much actually going for us. Of course, I mean, when you look at Atlanta, they didn't have all that much going for them either, because they have to build an Olympic stadium. But getting to Atlanta, you know, people thought that really Atlanta's chance was slim and none, and I was one of them, because they are celebrating the 100th modern Olympics, and everybody thought it was going to be in Athens, Greece, because that's where it started. And Athens, Greece wanted it. But Atlanta, Georgia just got the people together, Coca-Cola and the mayor and Andy Young and everybody, just Leroy Walker, who's president of the United States Olympic Committee, and all of them just went over there, and they had a plan, and they put it to action, and they did their politicking, in which you have to do, and they got the votes, and they won it, and Atlanta has it. And I've been back and forth to Atlanta now quite a few times. I was down there about 2 weeks ago. They had an affair. Bell South down there had an affair for all the previous Olympians out of Georgia who had won a gold, silver, or bronze medal, or either works in Georgia now. But they invited me down there as their guest because I had 7 girls on that group, plus we had Ralph Boston, so that made us 8 altogether. Out of, I think it was 36 altogether. It was 36.
So Tennessee State University had 8 out of 30.
We had 8 out of 36. So they had not only track and field, they had boxing, and they had all the other sports. All the other sports were there. And they had a 3-day affair. And it was very nice. I mean, but they honored them, and they made a calendar, and they put all of them on different months of the calendar. And it was very nice, a very nice affair. But Atlanta's moving along. They're about halfway through with the stadium. They're going to bring the track. They're going to bring the ingredients for the track from Italy. They're going to bring it from Italy and put it down. It's going to be an awful fast track, I do believe. Then after the Olympics is over, they're going to convert that 85,000 seat stadium into a baseball stadium. They're going to take about 20,000 seats out, and they're going to convert that for a baseball. Now, what the old stadium, which is the baseball stadium now for the Braves, right now, that's going to be the assembly grounds for when they have the opening ceremonies, because it's right across the street from where the new stadium is going to be built. And then once this is over with, the Olympics, they're going to tear the old stadium down, the Braves, and that'll be the parking lot for the new stadium. But a lot of schools are going to benefit out of this. Georgia Tech's going to get all the modern Olympic equipment that they're going to have there. Georgia State's going to get the dormitories and the Olympic Village. We have Mars Brown is going to get a new football field because they're building a new soccer field there. We got Spelman's going to get some tennis courts that they're going to have preliminary games there. But you got Atlanta U is going to get a gym and everything that's going to seat about 6,000. So everybody's going to get a little something. And of course, that's what makes the Olympics, not only the Olympics of people saying, well, you're building all these things, what's going to happen afterwards? It was just like in Los Angeles. You had USC got the Olympic swimming pool. You had UCLA got a new field house. All these schools benefit tremendously, and the state benefits tremendously, because these facilities will be there after the Olympics is over. And if you want to have an international meet of any kind, we'll say in soccer or in track or something like this, you have the stadium already there.
Coach, this final minute that we have, what about a stadium for Tennessee State University and the proposed Oilers coming to town? I mean, would that benefit anybody?
Well, first, I would like to see us get our own stadium out there, because it's always nice to have what you own. But if we can't, I mean, if they build this Oilers Stadium and 85,000 seats, well, that can be a place for us to play homecoming and play teams like Jackson State and South Carolina State and Southern and Grambling, and Florida A&M. Those are the teams that I think we could get 40, 50,000 people in there. And
so that would really benefit the city of Nashville anytime that we could bring
hotels, motels, people spending. We got to go to Atlanta to play South Carolina State. I was down there, and we had 52,000. We went to Memphis, and we played there, and we had something like 51,000. Now we can bring all that here and have it here in Nashville and have 52 and 55,000.
Very good. Coach, and let me thank you during these last few seconds that we have for that very, very excellent information that you've given us about Tennessee State University and the Olympic tradition. And not only that, but what is going on now in reference to the Olympics. We know that you're very